Okay, it's my honor to call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the Elgin City Council on November 24th at 7:01 p.m. We'll start with roll call. I believe that everyone is here and one council member is calling in virtually, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. If we'll start, Ms. Pinson, if you'll start with roll call. Ramita's here. And Sue, can you hear us?
Frazier is here.
Thank you very much. So we have a quorum. Let's go to our invocation. If Ms. Pinson will do us the honor, please.
Let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, Lord, we come to you with bowed heads and humble hearts. Lord, we thank you for the many blessings you bestowed upon us. Thank you, Lord, for blessing us to gather together today in person and virtual. Pray your blessings upon this meeting. Bless it to be what you'd have it to be. Bless each individual, every family that's represented here tonight. Bless this meeting to be what you'd have it to be. Bless us to conduct ourselves decently and in order. These and other blessings we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, if we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas State Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I
Pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God,
one indivisible. All right. So as the new mayor, I forgot to use the gavel already. So I've never used it before, so I'm going to gavel it. But next on the agenda, we have public comments. We have two people that are signed up. Is anybody else signed up, Amelia, or is it only these two? Okay, so welcome everybody here at the City Council meeting. First of all, we'd like to hear from Cynthia Birchfield. Cynthia, we have each public comment is limited to about 3 minutes, if you would, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I've asked Sherry to come up here with me because she was with me in the very beginning when all this concerned citizens came about. Actually, she was the only one that supported me. And I shared things with her to get a second view on things, and she supported me all the way through, and I appreciated that. This is somewhat some closure for me to have this chat or come up here to this panel. I want you to know that, please know I never wanted this whole thing to get out of hand and feel that my voice was not heard from the start of all this. I did everything the right way and received all the information legally from the start. Not to mention, I put my best, I did my best to view everything objectively. I sat on the information until, I received the information in February, and I sat on it till June because I lacked support, especially among the CPA group, and was told volunteer services were not welcomed at the PD any longer. I've been a volunteer since 2014. And this was because I submitted a personal information request. From there, he started to smear my character, telling others I was off my rocker. Disappointed, but not surprising. If stirring the pot was ever my intention or in my nature, then I would have started this 6 years ago when I started volunteering. So I'm very disappointed that an external internal investigation is not going to happen, and I'm confused. I do feel like we have a huge problem and a huge liability on our hands. There's so much more I want to express here, and I just don't have the time or the courage right now. So please forgive me. But if I could leave with one question for this council to think about. Now, I sat on the hiring panel at the PD a few times, and the one question that always came around was, and I'll leave you with this question. What is more important to have, integrity or loyalty, and why? And I just think it's something to think about. It's a question that has changed my life, and at first I thought it was an unfair question to put somebody on the spot to be able to answer something like that. And I think that it just goes to show there's so much loyalty and not enough integrity going on in this city, and I'm sad. And if I can make a difference, I plan to. I have been talking to Jody Barr with KXAN. He has the audios now, and I'm torn. I'd want my city to help me, and I wanted the support. But am I not
Okay,
doing
so
the right thing?
we're
to
at
hand
3
it
minutes,
over?
just so you know. Go ahead,
Okay.
finish.
Okay, but I feel disloyal to my city too at the same time. But and honestly, I just don't know what to do about it. I mean, and I'll just keep on with the media as much as I can. I'm going to be completely honest. And the help with the concerned citizens of Elgin, who have, 423 signatures that want an external investigation, plus 615 people have signed up on the concerned citizen page. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Birchfield. Okay, Matthew Callahan? Welcome, Matthew.
Hi there, thank you. I've been a resident of Elgin for 20 years. I've been a business owner here in Elgin since 2004. And I live in Ward 3, which is vastly underrepresented here, as you can see tonight. And so I'm throwing my hat in the ring to be part of the council for Ward 3. I know from I guess at this point you appoint 2 people, hopefully, and I'm hoping to be one of those 2. So that's why I'm here.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming, Mr. Callahan. There are no other public comments turned in? No? Okay. Next, we'll start with a presentation from Brooks, Watson and Company.
Mayor, this is the annual audit report provided every year. Brooks and Watson have been the city's external auditor. Is this the 5th year, Mike?
I think it is.
It's the 5th report, so Mike's got a presentation. Be glad to answer any questions, I'm sure.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Mike Brooks, audit partner with Brooks Watson CPAs. And prior to the meeting, we did hand out the annual financial report for the 2019 fiscal year, along with a couple of our audit letters and a summary of our PowerPoint presentation. I will go over the summary presentation now, and if you do have any questions, we can chat about anything you like in more detail afterwards. First, just briefly, I want to go over the audit process as a whole. This audit can be broken into 3 general phases. The first being the planning phase. This is when we typically come out sometime mid-year or prior to year-end close. We are sitting down and meeting with city staff, talking about the various changes, any new accounting standards that have come out, trying to find out what's been going on during the city, any new debt, any major capital projects, where we're going to tailor our audit procedures for the areas that have the most risk, and put together our preliminary audit plan. The second stage is the field work. This is the bulk of what we do. This is when we come out after year end. The books have been closed. At this point, we are looking at all of your material assets, liabilities, revenues, and expenditures. So if there isn't a material activity, we are auditing it or performing some sort of audit procedure over it during the year. And the final stage is the conclusion and reporting. This is the wrap up and the accumulation of any findings and journal entries that we did have, the preparation of the financial report, and the presentation of that financial report to City Council. Next is what we consider to be the most important statement within your audit report. This is our independent auditor's report. This can have four possible outcomes, the best being an unmodified audit opinion, and the worst being an adverse audit opinion. We have issued a clean, unmodified audit opinion on the city's financials, which is the highest level of assurance that we can give that these financial statements are free of any material misstatement and all footnotes are disclosed. Next, I'd just like to touch on several financial highlights as of the end of the year. As of September 30th, 2019, total assets exceeded total liabilities by approximately $22.8 million. The city's governmental funds reported a combined ending fund balance of $2.6 billion, which increased $543,000 from the prior year. Your unassigned fund balance within your general fund totaled $155,000 as of year end, and the city had an overall increase in net position of about $253,000 from the prior year. Next is a summary of your governmental activities revenue. So this is all of your governmental funds, general fund, special revenue fund, capital projects fund. This is going to highlight some of the larger, more significant revenue sources. The total revenues for the year were approximately $9.3 million. This was a decrease of about $1.1 million from the prior year. The three largest being property taxes, which totaled $3.8 million and increased $357,000. Sales taxes totaled $1.4 million and decreased about $17,000. And charges for services, which primarily include permitting, totaled $2.7 million and increased $1,356,000. Next is a summary of all of your governmental activities expenditures for the year. Total expenses were approximately $10,687,000, which increased just a little under $2.5 million. The three largest being public safety, which totaled $3.2 million and increased $388,000. Public works totaled $1.7 million and also increased $280,000. And your general government expenses totaled $2.9 million and increased $626,000. Next is a summary of your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for your governmental funds. These are your major funds, which include the general, red light, capital projects, and debt service fund. I did highlight the net change in the fund balance for the year. This is either the increase or decrease in your fund balance. I'm going to start on the left-hand side. Your general fund did have a decrease in fund balance, so this was a reduction in your fund balance for the year of $229,000. Your red light camera fund also had a decrease of $217,000. Your capital projects fund had an increase of $470,000, and your debt service fund also had an increase of about $271,000. One of the more important numbers that we look at here is your ending fund balance for your general fund. The reason that is important is because a city should strive to maintain an adequate fund balance reserve, unassigned fund balance reserve, which would be available to meet day-to-day operations or unplanned expenditures, emergencies, that sort of thing. So the GFOA recommends at least striving for a minimum of about 15% of your annual general fund expenditures. And as of the end of the year, the general fund did have $155,000, which was a little below the 15%. So this year, the general fund did take a little bit of a hit. There was a few items that came in under budget on the revenue side and a few over on the expenditure side. So we do recommend that the city take steps and try to increase that ending fund balance. For
Mike, when you say a little under, are we talking 10%, 12%?
As far as your under budget,
Yeah.
We'll talk about the exact number as far
Okay.
as the percentage
Okay.
goes. All right. So next is your budgeted general fund, budget versus actual within your general fund. So this is going to point out a few of the items. This is a summary, so it doesn't show the exact detail. We can look back at the report, which shows the breakout of the individual items, which came in either over or under budget. So we might want to do that. But so on the left-hand side here, we do have the final budgeted numbers. This is after any budget amendments. Your middle column is going to be your actual, and on the right-hand side, we have the either positive or negative budget variance. So on the upper right, the city did have a negative revenue variance of about $213,000. So the city received about $213,000 less than your final budget. Below that, the city did have a negative expenditure variance of about $360,000. So the city spent about $360,000 more than your final budget. That, along with your other financing sources, which had a positive budget variance of $105,000, had an overall negative budget variance of about $468,000. And the easy way to look at that is your final budget budgeted for an increase or an addition to fund balance of about $239,000. The city actually had a decrease in fund balance of $229,000. So the net between those two numbers is where you get your overall negative budget variance. Next is a summary of your revenues, expenditures, and changes in net position for your proprietary funds. This does include your water and sewer fund primarily. So what we typically look for here is, are these funds self-supporting? The difference between your proprietary funds and your governmental funds are these funds should have rates that are set at a level that do fund operations, capital expenditures, and debt. So if these funds are losing money, it's typically an indication that the rates are not set at the appropriate level or something else unique is going on. So this year, the utility fund did have an increase in net position of about $1.6 million. So overall, the fund had a healthy year, and the ending net position is in a healthy position. So that does conclude my formal presentation on some of the more important numbers within your financial report. If you would like to revisit something more specific, I'd be happy to go back in more detail and I can answer your questions. Sure.
Mr. Brooks, we had an unmodified outcome, which is the highest level of assurance, right?
That's correct.
And if we have a disaster and we didn't have that $155,000 surplus, that would probably move it down, right?
That alone wouldn't necessarily change the audit opinion. The audit opinion is primarily related to the accuracy of the financials. So whatever financial position the city is in won't impact that audit opinion, as long as the numbers are correct.
So I heard you say that we should strive as a city, and I know that this is fact, for 15%, try to keep 15% in general fund. And you said that we were below it
That's correct.
considerably, or?
So the city did have approximately 8 million, about 8.3 million in expenditures for the 19 fiscal year. So if we're shooting for 15%, it's going to be somewhere in the 82. We should be able to, so 120. Actually, you know what? I do apologize. I think the city was over our 15%.
I was just trying to
my
figure out.
apologies. Yeah, we did have a decrease, but the city still did maintain that adequate reserves. My apologies for that.
No problem.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just to add on that point, that one of the items on the agenda tonight is the EDC will be paying us back, doing a loan to pay us back some of that cash reserve, so we'll be in a much better position after that occurs for unencumbered cash.
Anybody else on the council have any questions for Mike? Of course, we just got this, so we'll
Right.
there's a lot to look over, so.
Sure, I understand. And if anybody doesn't have my contact info, city manager or finance director can certainly give that to you. If you have anything you want to discuss with me personally, feel free to reach out.
Do you have another copy? I didn't have one.
Yes, I'm sorry. We have some extras here. Sorry, I didn't get those to you.
Your contact information's probably in there, right, in the report? It's on the letterhead or whatever.
That's firm name and address, but email is not in here. So if you need that, we can.
Well,
Why don't you just give it to us?
Okay, it's M. Brooks, as in Mike, at brookswatsoncpa.com.
Thank you.
And if you'd rather call, 281-907-9223.
Thank you. Council, anybody else have anything for Mike before? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, moving on the agenda, we have the city manager's report. Tom, if you want to.
Thanks, Mayor. We're obviously having some problems with our AV system tonight, so, but fortunately, most of the material items, we've got hard copies of presentations that I think we can work through with those. The first item on the agenda on the manager's report is a review of potential neighborhood traffic and safety upgrades at certain intersections in the community. This report we're making this evening is the end product of a process that a fairly common process that we've used in the city for quite some time, where periodically people will contact us about traffic or safety concerns they have in their neighborhoods. And each one of these cases, we have 4 different projects we're here to discuss tonight. Individuals, residents in those areas reached out to their council representatives, and those council members conveyed those concerns to my office, ask us to look at these situations with no particular expectations or demands, but just ask us to consider the input what they'd received from citizens, and so we did that. So the staff and the city engineer actually in each case went on site and considered the issues that were raised and thought about potential projects or certain improvements that were both effective and attainable. You know, one of the problems, the big challenges we have, like any smaller, older town with limited resources, is that while there are certain problems, concerns that way for traffic and safety, oftentimes the solutions are not affordable. And frankly, sometimes what concerns individuals may have about traffic and safety in their neighborhood aren't necessarily supported by the data or our own analysis. But in these cases, we actually have 4 different projects that we've looked at. We've developed what we think are items that are projects that in each case are affordable for the city, are projects that we can make some changes utilizing city forces to do that, and they are situations where some kind of response we believe is warranted and appropriate based on the feedback that we received. But as I've said, what makes these projects different from others that have come forward is the combination of the fact that the requests we found are reasonable. The improvements, the upgrades that we're proposing are warranted and supported by the analysis and the data. The improvements are compliant with the law, and most importantly, they're affordable. So with that, we're going to use this packet that I gave you. It's got the 4 different projects beforehand, and we've got them numbered that way, but actually we have the city engineer on speakerphone with us as well. Yep. Sorry to, Bo, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, good. Bo's off in a foreign land celebrating the holidays, so, but he has taken time out of his vacation to help brief the council on each one of these projects. So what I'd suggest, Mayor, we might do is try to go through each 4 projects, and then we'll circle back and we can discuss each one at a time. But first, I thought Bo would just briefly run down what each project represents, what we're trying to address, and what improvements that we're proposing. And I want to say as well, too, to make clear to everybody, is We're here tonight to discuss the possibilities of these projects and what can be done. There's been no decision made about anything to be done, when it'll be done, how it'll be done. That's what we're seeking guidance from the council as a whole is about. So with that, I'll just we'll start with the one labeled Figure 1 that's at Brenham Street and Old McDade Road. Bo, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Hopefully everybody can hear me. So in this area, what was brought to our attention was just basically oncoming traffic. The people on Hillside Drive felt that if where the stop sign was located, that they had to come to a stop and that they still had to move forward in order to see oncoming traffic that would be coming down Old McDade Road. For those familiar with the site, you have Old McDade Road that continues on straight, East Brenham Street that comes into a connection, you have Hillside Drive, so you have a bunch of different competing streets that all come into an intersection, and there really is kind of a open island out there in the middle of the area that's uncontrolled. And so the current locations of the stop signs are where they need to be based on what the configuration of the existing roadway is. That being said, in order to make it safer and to try to address the comments from those on Hillside Drive as they approach that intersection, having to pull out in order to see people coming from Old McDade who continue down Old McDade as opposed to following on into Brenham Street. This is one potential change that could be done. We laid out is basically to kind of fix the sins of the past, which in some parts of the town, a lot of these roads were either annexed in or county roads, or they were put into non-conforming of what you would have for your planning in today's subdivisions and neighborhoods, the way that they were installed. And one potential option that I gave is where the existing stop sign is on Hillside, it does meet MUTCD guidelines of where that stop sign should be. Moving it further towards Old McDade Road would not accomplish what the residents were hoping for, because what it would actually do is it would require that at the time you come to your complete stop, you would have already entered into the right-of-way of Old McDade Road and put your car at risk of being hit from someone that's continuing down Old McDade Road. And by the city moving that stop sign, essentially the city would be potentially at risk by moving that. So one of the proposals that I came up with and looking at, and then again this would have to be a neighborhood decision, council decision, was eliminating that no man's land that's in the middle with either delineators or some other kind of barrier. And what that would allow you to be able to do is the existing stop sign on Old McDade Road, you could actually put it out beyond the Hillside Drive intersection to where it needs to be. You could install a new stop sign there where Old McDade continues, so that traffic would have to come to a stop before they would be there at Hillside Drive. And then at the same time, not allow left-hand turn when someone would be heading to the east on Brenham towards Old McDade Road. You want to be able to cut across that median area to get to Hillside Drive or to try to make a U-turn onto Old McDade Road. That would clean up a little bit of the traffic flow patterns, as Old McDade Road is a major street in and out of Elgin. In and out. And it would help to clear up some of the confusion when you have someone coming down Hillside Drive, you have someone coming down Old McDade Road, and you have someone coming down Brenham Street. And it becomes a proposition game of chicken, essentially, of who's going to stop and who's going to make the turns.
Okay, you want to go on to the next one then, Bo? South Avenue A and Loop 109.
So on this particular one, the residents, the complaint that we were hearing was traffic coming down South Avenue A towards Cleveland Street tends to be very quick. As you go out there, for those that are aware of that particular intersection, South Avenue A is actually a split on and off of South Avenue A as you go on to Loop 109, which is actually TxDOT's right-of-way territory. And what you're able to do is if you're traveling south on Loop 109 towards Highway 290 and you're going to access Avenue A, you literally do not have to decelerate. You can take that ramp and go straight onto Avenue A and actually be accelerating your vehicle at that point in time. There's nothing that makes you slow down as you go through that. And one suggestion would be to basically eliminate that access point of South Avenue A and make it more of a traditional stop, and you basically make right on or right off movements on South Avenue A, because that's a residential neighborhood where people would be accessing it only. And then you also would eliminate a lot of the conflict that you see with it being a full access, where you have the gas station access right there next to it, where you put people in conflict. You also have the double line that's right there from TxDOT. You have a lot of traffic stacking, and this would help to clean that up. Essentially, if you wanted to go to South Avenue A as a resident of South Avenue A, you would not access it from Loop 109 direction. You would come down Cleveland Street, essentially, in order to access your home. But you would still have access out to 290 if you were leaving that area to head there. And if you wanted to go to downtown Elgin, you would go down Cleveland Street. This one is to note just for the city that you do have a quote-unquote permitted access point there with TxDOT. So if there was a decision to remove that access point, or either one, or at that particular location, you would not have a easy time getting that access. You would never be able to allow to put it back into service once you physically permanently removed it from TxDOT.
Okay, number 3 is South Avenue C in Ramirez.
Correct. For this particular location, those who've been out there, it's kind of another one of those triangle connections where you do get put into a position where the cars are going out into an area. They come to a stop at one location, but you actually have to encroach out into an area where you're not in a safe place. You're supposed to be in a safe place behind a stop sign. But in order to actually make a turn movement, you have to stop at the stop sign and go even further on out in order to make your turn, whichever direction that would be. What was proposed here is essentially removing that current access directly to 1704 that's there, which is TxDOT right-of-way. You have a residential neighborhood that's tying directly into TxDOT. For those who don't know, Ramirez Road is it is maintained by the city, but it is 100% within TxDOT's right-of-way. But by agreement, TxDOT allowing it to be used, it has to be maintained by the city. And what this would basically do, or is proposed, and there are different ways to do it, is to return Ramirez Street and South Avenue C to more of a residential neighborhood type street. And that would be by turning Ramirez Road into a one-way street where you would only have access to 290. And essentially, you would still allow access into the commercial development there by putting a one-way sign there. We would take away access from 1704 to South Avenue C, which would force traffic, truck traffic, 18-wheeler traffic, through traffic that's trying to access 290. It would force them to go down 1704 and stay 100% on TxDOT right away in order to access 290. And then it would also you would eliminate those 2 stop signs there, and then that would just be more of a traditional residential area for which it's kind of designed for right now. That has been talked about with TxDOT, and again, same thing here. No issues with TxDOT with removing that access. Guardrail would be put up, but it is one of those, if that access were removed, you would not get that access point back. This particular move, just in light of recent events, this will help make traffic use FM 1704 as it goes around to Harris Street, and you have that other weird configuration of a 3-way intersection that has stop signs and right away and yielding to it, that traffic will actually go there to where your patterns more likely will push you towards being able to warrant having a light or having TxDOT address that intersection. But so much of that traffic that goes through that intersection makes the turn and goes down Ramirez Street right here, where it would normally traditionally should be going down to that particular intersection before making a traffic movement.
All right, and then the last one is Houston and Madison.
And Houston. So this one was brought to us by a resident. This is kind of a blow up, and it would have to be looked at a little bit. But essentially, a lot of traffic would speed down Madison. It's a very long stretch residential neighborhood that continues down to Houston. You can see again we have basically a four-way intersection, but the streets are not aligned very connectively there between Madison and Houston. And so what was kind of proposed or discussed is a couple of different things. One would be the city may decide to do a warrant study to add another stop sign there at Jackson so that you are making someone who's traveling through a residential neighborhood potentially have a three-way stop or a two-way stop there to slow them down on Madison as they approach Houston. There could be some reconfiguring of some of the other stop signs and whatnot, but that would probably be the only way to eliminate traffic coming down. Same thing with Houston Street. Potentially you could look at a warrant of people that are coming down Houston Street towards MLK Boulevard of slowing them down by adding some additional three-way stops down Houston Street. Because again, you have long sections of road that have intersecting streets where people are able to pick up speed as they continue on down. Again, these are things that would go through council, that would be low cost. For stop signs, right now, council's position has been here recently in the past to do the warrant studies and then to bring to council to decide if they still want to install a stop sign. So that would be one thing to consider of how to address this particular location.
Okay, thanks, Bo. We can circle back to the first one and start walking through them if you want, but as you can see from each one of these projects, Bo, the staff has developed a plan that all of what you might call barricades we'd put in place, striping, signage, the delineators on the near Hillside Drive. These are all projects that are reasonably affordable by the staff, and the staff can do all the work. Of course, the warrant studies, or TRC would most likely do those, done those in the past. But in each case, these are situations where we've looked at them, as I said earlier, have come up with these plans, and we're ready for council to give us further direction on if and how we'll proceed. The one thing I would mention is that in each case, as you can see, these are projects that are located in neighborhood areas. They're not on major thoroughfares. There's not really a reason from a major traffic or development standpoint to do these improvements. But it clearly will have an impact on how the traffic flows in each neighborhood. So other than the residents that we heard from initially, we haven't had any kind of public outreach or discussed these with the other property owners in the neighborhood. But we were waiting for some guidance from council on if and how to proceed with each one. So I don't know if you, Mary, if you want to just break each one down and
let's
see
start
what
with
questions
what-
are.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, Sue.
Sorry. Tom, we also discussed the one on North Avenue F between Lexington and 2nd Street to do rework on it.
That's right. We had a similar request there that came through Councilmember Brazier and followed the same process. We looked at the input, the request we got from the resident in that area, considered the request she made and the ideas she had, and they just didn't meet the same threshold. We frankly don't think some of those things would be supported by warrants and would be a major expense and a major project for us to do. So we followed the same process with that request. This is a similar process we've followed with all these requests. It's just in this case, there wasn't, frankly, a simple solution in that case.
Sue, does that answer your question?
That's true, and we worked through that, but I thought we were going to maybe push back to Bo and see if there was a more inexpensive way to look at it and not what the citizen was requesting.
Well, we did. We had that conversation, and it's just one of these cases where it's a narrow street. We don't have a lot of right-of-way. Reducing the speed limit, it's Bo's opinion that wouldn't meet the warrants or for other stop signage in that area. Bo, do you have any more on that?
I can kind of walk, if you have a minute, Tom, I can just walk through the
Sure.
different bullet points real quick.
Sure.
Okay. So similar to the other projects, the citizen kind of gave ideas for us to look through. One was putting striping down the middle of the roadway and on both sides, and to create bike lanes and walk lanes along there. We went out there, the measurement was done. The pavement width does not allow for you to put in bike and walk lanes with the striping and still meet standards with the UTCD. So that one was responded in that we just don't have enough pavement width. You'd actually have to make the roadway wider in order to be able to do compliant bike lanes or walking lanes. The other one was talking about putting stop signs at every cross street down there, and as well as doing 25 miles per hour with it strictly enforced from APD. I think staff supported the APD that, yes, all speeding can be enforced by APD, but it requires an officer to be there at all times, depending on how many full-time officers are in the city to enforce speeding in different areas. And then the other portion of is that particular cross street, putting stop signs at every single cross street. It's very tough to do it as a warrant. I didn't think from an object, obviously the city can decide to do the warrant study irregardless to look at the results, but that would be a lot of stop signs going down there to do it. But essentially that's a council decision on that. That's what was come back there. The other one talked about putting in rubber speed bumps. Again, up and down that particular roadway. Council of the past has said they will not put down without doing the warrant studies for the speed bumps. So that is something council can take direction of how they would like to proceed with or without that. But that was another option that was done. City staff didn't support putting down additional speed bumps on that particular road. The other one said to build medians down the roadway. There's just not enough. It can be done, but the entire road would have to be widened in order to accommodate medians. And I think the last item was to put in a traffic circle. There's just not enough right-of-way out there to even attempt to build it without buying out property. So those were the different steps we went through. Sue, to answer your question, I think we're at that point where it would be, do you go ahead and do the warrant study on the stop signs, or do you do a warrant study on the speed bumps and proceed down and then take action or address it at that point in time? I've gone up and down there a few other ways other than stop signs or speed humps without redoing the street in some way. Obviously, the city can enforce a different miles per hour. That's council's right as well. it might slow people down, but enforcement generally is the best. Is the only way ultimately, and that's only as good as when you're right there doing it.
Hey, Sue, how about this? How about we do some more work on this, and if the situation arises, we'll put it back on the agenda.
Yeah, that's fine. It just needed to be discussed, and it needed to be a part of this list.
Okay?
And there's been some studies, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I just don't want it to get dropped.
Okay. Point made.
Did I answer all your questions, Sue? Or did I leave anything out there?
No, I think you had given that to us whenever we first looked at this before, and perhaps the solution is just maybe one stop sign in the middle. But we can talk about that later. I just want to make sure it stays.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bo. So if we're going to come back, I guess, to situation number one, or figure number one, is the East Brenham and Old MacDade. Did a councilman here receive someone call in and have a problem, or?
Yes, Mayor. Several months back, several folks living on Hillside really came to us about the stop sign that's currently there. Just a safety issue, as Tom described. One of the things that we talked about in the past that we might consider, and this is a different conversation, is that, this is a few items for tonight. I'd be hard-pressed to say that it's a complete list across the city. We've talked a little bit about, can we as a city create a process where citizens can provide input via form, via some sort of online version that we can possibly get some initial information to understand what the situation is, and then really try to see over time if there's a theme that's coming across with a couple of the issues. They're not all related to speed. Some of them could be intersection improvement, as we looked at. Of course, certain areas here are some areas, again, that originally were probably not as designed as well. Long story short is that that's probably a conversation that we can have. How can citizens get in touch with the city as far as when they want to bring our attention to traffic calming, speeding, improvement type issues? Okay. Otherwise, the one-off becomes very difficult to manage, I think, over time. And then we have Bo all over the city trying to assess one-offs when we might think about how do we collect that information. But to answer your question, in all of these situations, we were approached by several citizens. There are some areas that, of course, we've been hearing for a while, particularly on Ramirez Road, mainly about just the truck traffic, the trucks that are coming off the route and going on Ramirez Road trying to get to 290. The road's simply not built for that type of truck or the speed that occurs on a regular basis.
Okay, so we know that we're not looking for any action items on this. We're discussing each intersection or each figure that we're talking about. Figure number one, does anybody else have anything to add to the East Brenham and Old MacDade? Because, for instance, where it's proposed a no left turn off of Brenham onto Hillside or onto Old MacDade, that's pretty drastic right there. Yeah. Anybody else have any feelings about that?
I think the residents at Hillside area would be against that, because that's probably the main way they go home. Because if you're coming down Brenham, you're not going to go all the way down MLK to come back up, MacDade to go to. I mean, it's easier. And personally, it looked like if you could put a stop sign on Old MacDade Road right there before you get to that curve, right at that curve, it'll eliminate all of that. That's just me. I mean,
Well, that's what I want. I want it from
See,
every one of you guys to have an opinion.
because when you come out of Hillside or from this direction to Brenham, Old MacDade Road, you got to, a mailman, so I know how to turn my vehicle so I can see, but everybody doesn't. And that intersection, it's really dangerous because you can't really see down the street, Old MacDade Road. But if they were forced to stop, approaching, they would at least stop, even though they have a speed hump right there, I assume that it's not helping the people now. That wasn't enough, but, if they, yeah, were to have to stop, that would, give them time to see them from Hillside, so they can decide if they're gonna pull out or not. That's just, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but I would be against the no left turn, because that would be their main way home, or what have you.
So-
Let me just ask you a question. What is EX? What is this?
I asked the same question.
Anybody else have anything?
I finally
Yes,
figured
Forrest.
that out. My question is, there on Hillside, is part of the problem an obstructive view? Is there vegetation there that could be cut back that would,
Is
You know,
the
be a
obstruction,
big race.
is the obstruction trees, shrubs, or is it just the angle?
On the property, right off Hillside, was trimmed by the city. City did not have to do that. That was just something that they did. But even then, it's where the stop sign is right now. It's mainly obstruction at this point. They can't see traffic coming from Old McDade Road. It's coming too fast, or they simply can't see, so they're pulling out into that smaller stretch of Old McDade Road, right around this island that's always been kind of weird.
okay.
Okay, so obviously we need to do some more looking and see if, the move, it says 3 proposed stop signs and moving to, or 3 existing stop signs. So,
Yeah, some of those are existing stop signs that are just being relocated to a new location.
Bo, quit scaring me like that. I keep forgetting you're there, Bo. Quit scaring me like that.
I was just
Okay.
saying that some of those aren't like necessarily brand new stop signs that don't exist.
Okay.
Some of them are existing stop
I
signs
see.
just being relocated. Like this particular figure, there's only one new stop sign, and then there was the proposed left turn, sign. But I did get the comments about wanting to keep Brenham Street able to make that movement, and so I can look at some potential site distances that does come into play, that you should be able to make that left-hand turn
Okay.
safely from Brenham onto Old McDade without having to worry about Old McDade having a right-of-way. Some of that has to do a lot with Old McDade, the way it's classified right now as a street, for the city, as a major path in and out of the city, and you generally don't want to try to stop that traffic. And we could look at it as saying, okay, if we let traffic continue on through Old McDade Road, and that's the major thoroughfare as opposed to Brenham Street being the major thoroughfare, then it makes more sense to try to do a left-hand turn lane there. Just depends on how council would look at what would your traffic pattern you would want to encourage people to take.
I would venture to say that this is just my opinion, the majority of cars heading down Old McDade Road into town would take the Brenham entrance and not the rest of that Old McDade Road entrance. I mean, I would think the Brenham is probably 3 out of every 4 cars. I'm just guessing, but it's much heavier than, yeah.
Yeah, and hence that would be the reason you would not want a left-hand turn, because you're giving them an obstacle, because those people are expecting to continue on through.
On Brenham, you're saying?
In that direction.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. The people coming into town would continue on to Brenham. You wouldn't want people trying to make a left-hand turn from Brenham onto Old McDade Road, because you're putting them in direct conflict with the people coming in on Old McDade. You know, basically, they'd be making a turn in front of a car that has no stops as they're coming into town, and they're not anticipating to stop either.
Anybody else?
Another option is you just add a couple more stop signs there, and you really make it very, very protective to try to account for left-hand turns. Obviously, what you'll end up, and it might not be a big deal now, is that road classification probably drops down, and it ends up being more of like a residential roadway, because you will start to back up cars that are having to come and go through the stop, this person, as they come in, and that's not necessarily a bad
Yes, ma'am.
Just because I just drove over there last week, it's only going to get worse with all the condos and the apartments back there, and so it's going to be even more traffic. So I would say on this one, we probably needed to do something sooner than later.
Okay. All right, so obviously, we have a lot more to think about, council, because, again, that's, one of these proposed, no left turn, that's pretty big. So we need to figure out if we think that's the safest thing to do. Is it the best thing for the neighborhood? Is it the best thing for the people coming into town? So, okay. Let's go to number 2. South Avenue A and Loop 109. Anybody have any comments?
Mayor?
Yes.
My initial comment is just regarding, one of the things that Bo and Tom helped me to understand in this situation, as Tom described, is that in this case, working with TxDOT would be possible sooner rather than later. In other words, what's proposed here is doable. It's not a situation, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, that would require large amounts of time to try to get some sort of approval from TxDOT. It says here, and one of the things that was discussed is proposing temporary barriers. Maybe that's a little bit of like a trial and error. Let's see if that works. Let's see how citizens respond. And then we would have an option to remove those temporary barriers. And then if it's something that we want to go with, and I say we, but really what it is the citizens, because we still need to talk about how we do the public outreach. Because in the end, it's really what they want, not what I want. But if temporary barriers is an option for this particular area, it's something we might consider to see, and then try to go with what might make sense based on responses or reactions, or just even if it's improved the situation, which is really all about speeding, and the fact that this intersection here at South Avenue A is a bit odd.
Anyone else?
I've always went to the left side if I wanted to make a left turn at the split.
That's funny you say that, because I'm sitting here looking, I don't know whether I've gone left or right on that
Yeah,
thing.
it's confusing.
Because,
Yeah.
well, it's Elgin Golden Years has a split too, when it, if I go left, I go to the left side. And, yeah, at the split. I mean, right here, and seems to me that we could, if we make this, a right turn only, and if someone needed to make a left at that turn, they could go past the turn to the other side and make a left.
I don't know if that
That
wouldn't
ain't
defeat the
feasible.
purpose of what we're doing, or what we're thinking about doing.
Well, because that would make them slow down to make the turn, and they wouldn't have that momentum just driving straight down the street. If it's a do not enter on this side,
Yeah.
but you can turn on that side.
I have to agree that I don't think this situation is quite as a drastic a change as maybe the others are. And especially, like Councilmember Vega said, using the temporary proposed temporary barriers, we could actually go almost on a trial basis and not have to spend a whole lot of city money before we make that decision, I guess.
Right, and if I may add, it also, we talked a little bit about just traffic control. Really the people that are going to either go around or come down that road are the folks that live on that street, which makes it more of a neighborhood street. Right now, it's used as a cut-through, and so that's been some of the complaint,
Okay.
as far as just people cutting through and speeding or not knowing how to respond to that intersection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if we can get some lines drawn on the street, reflective, because nighttime, they probably surely won't be able to see them, but unless they're reflective. But, yeah, some signage, I think it would drastically help.
And Mayor and Council, some of this you'll kind of probably have already gotten the gist of it is, and why the neighborhood outreach is kind of important is they want to reduce traffic in the residential areas and the speeding, and in order to do that, you try to clamp down on the ability to access those areas. And unfortunately, the byproduct of that is that also cuts down on their ability for that access that they may be currently using as well. So that's just something to think about when they're approached during that public outreach portion.
Okay.
I was thinking that same thing, because just like when kids are dropped off at school, the main speeders are their parents. When they leave and they're coming and going, you know, volunteering, you see this.
If I could just add one thing, I think this is a visual is a really good example of the challenge we're facing. As you can see from this, that's a long, straight shot, and as I think most of us know, that's even downhill going to the loop. So there's not a whole lot now we can do physically well, that's kind of what the look is. This is about the most we can do, short of rebuilding the entire street to try to slow down traffic there. So it's just an example of we're really limited in a lot of cases of what's even reasonably possible to address some of these things. But Mary, you're right. That's the key to this one is that the only thing we'd be doing is something we could do temporarily and kind of test it out if that's what we really want to go.
Would that be something that the state would be agreeable to, a temporary fix, or is that one of those things that's like, once we start putting those barricades or barriers?
Bo, you want to jump in on that? I think something like this, they're going to work with us on, especially if that, I think if we reached out to them and explained that we were trying to do something temporary, we could get them to work with us that way. Bo, you got any thoughts on that?
No, I'll talk directly to the TxDOT engineer, and I've talked to her about this one and the other one, and it's one of those that simply a letter from the city informing them of what you're doing, that's all that they would essentially need.
Yeah, I would just say in that sense, as a rule of thumb, TxDOT's almost always going to agree to reducing access or limiting access. Anytime that they're all about trying to just move traffic on the highways, so kind of any access point, they don't necessarily see filling that role. So they're usually always agreeable to something like this.
I'm just concerned that temporary trial, something, often becomes the permanent fix.
Which
you
may
never
be-
go back and
Maybe
do,
what we need.
Well,
but
but you cut corners to do the temporary, and whereas if you were gonna go ahead and do it, you would do it right, you know? And so you never do go back and, you know, change that because, you know, it's good enough, it's good enough, so, and maybe it's not.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, we, at least, Bo, I think we have some ideas maybe that we can work with on that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's important to notice that, you know, these are, I was asked, what is from an economical standpoint, without rebuilding roadways and doing large CapEx, what is the best way that we could eliminate or provide traffic slowdown? And so you could do any variation. I mean, you could leave it a full way instead of right in, right out only. You could leave it full access if you wanted to. So those are things for council to keep in mind. This isn't like the only one-all, end-all idea that for this particular intersection.
Okay. All right, let's move on to situation number 3, which is South Avenue C and Ramirez Road. Let me just put it out there, this was done before I was elected mayor. I grew up there, and my father lives on that road. I should put that out there as well. So I have my opinions, but I want to listen to you guys, what you think about the proposals here.
Mayor, if I may
Yes,
add
of
to,
course.
just to add some context as well, I was approached, and this is an area that, in the past, I know that PD has gone out to enforce speeding on the South Avenue C area, closer to that intersection, and then also looking at just people running the stop signs that are currently there. But recently, another Ramirez actually approached me mainly about the trucks that are passing through, and then of course someone else has also approached for us. So we've talked for a little while about just what the situations are, and Tom and Bo again have done a good job at sort of explaining some options, because really that was the question, not whether we could do something. It's like, what are the options that we might consider to share with our residents? So these are the options that are presented, and I think that for the most part, it presents, there are a couple of options here that could help alleviate or improve several situations. One, the speeding. One, looking at just making Ramirez Road more of a residential area, as Tom described. If you close off the section that's proposed, again, the trucks that are coming on 1704 are forced to stay 100% on the truck route, which is to go to the stop sign at the Y, take a left, and then get on 290, not necessarily to cut through Ramirez Road. What's happening there is that, of course, big trucks, the road is already not in the best shape. It's not made for big trucks. They're speeding down, so of course, the few residents that are here, it's a concern, as well as a safety concern for them. So, Forrest, I don't know if maybe you want to add a couple things that you heard from folks living
Right.
in the area.
Yeah, probably almost a year ago, a friend of mine came to me with this concern. He lives over there on Dumbeck, or Terra Road in Dumbeck, and so he works in Austin. So he turns left there off Main onto Ramirez Avenue C, whatever that is. And a number of times there's been cars coming barreling down Avenue C up to Main Street. And there's not stopping there. There's not a stop sign there. And then, so he's almost had these head-on collisions right there. Also, the stop sign there coming up Ramirez, where you're supposed to stop at Avenue C. Tom and Bo and I were out there one day, and, probably 3 out of every 4 cars didn't stop at that stop sign. They just blow through it. And so there's just a real potential for a real hazard there at that intersection, so something needs to be done. My concern is that, closing that off, and I'm of a mind that closing it off is the better thing to do, but if you do that, there are so many people that use that, as their access to 290, that you're going to be pushing that down to the Y, down by Myers, and so that's an equally bad intersection down there. But, that's all TxDOT property, so maybe they'll, fix that. But anyway, he just is concerned that something be done. And then he's talked again about the truck traffic and how, that's grinding up that road, and, there's not much effort to, fix it.
Anybody else before I say anything?
Mayor,
Yes.
one other thing, sorry. More recently, just as Forrest mentioned, regardless if you cut off this intersection or not, the Y is a serious trouble spot. I mean, recently I was contacted by folks that live there on South Main. I think we're all aware of the Y being, I don't know, I guess it's described as somewhat dangerous. I tend to agree. Whether the data shows that, I think that that's debatable. You have some folks that live there and see things all the time. More recently, an accident happened on Thursday, was sent pictures. Tom and I briefly talked a little bit about that. If these improvements or this proposal in this area that we're looking at South Avenue C and Ramirez Road are made, how does that then affect traffic that's going to be there at the Y? And would that justify really trying to work with TxDOT to help us to really improve that whole intersection? Because that definitely is coming to us at some point, if it hasn't already, that we'll probably have to address. So I think in the big picture, if we are working with TxDOT, really working to establish that relationship, as you have mentioned, really go with them to understand where they can help us, not only here, but also further up at the Y.
That's a very good point. The thing that concerns me, there's no doubt in my mind that well, first of all, Tom, I don't know if you know this right off the top of your head, but are trucks allowed to travel Ramirez Road? Is that legal, according to our ordinance?
It's, well, not according to our ordinance. It's not on the truck route. They're supposed to stay on 290.
So if I'm a big truck and I'm heading down 1704 into Elgin, how would I get to the highway? Go down to the Y where Myers is and cut across there? Is that
Yes.
what they should do?
Yes.
A lot of them do that.
Okay. I'm really concerned about cutting off access to Ramirez Road off 1704. I mean, there's hundreds of cars that use that cutoff, not only from out in the country, but to Fisher Street and to Terra, Dumbeck, Monterey, all those streets that use that Ramirez Road for the cutoff. There's no doubt in my mind, we need to do something. We need to stripe, put another stop sign, get the police department to sit out there, maybe issue a few tickets on the current stop signs. I don't know, because I agree, most people run them. I mean, most people run that stop sign on Ramirez Road. And the truck traffic, my dad says that it is picking up, compared to what it was. I just don't think cutting off 1704, that access to 1704 is the answer. Maybe everything else, but not cutting off that access to 1704. Even though we're gonna cause a problem, just like y'all have said, we're gonna cause a problem at the Y, where Myers is. We're gonna have a log jam there, basically. People trying to get to 290.
I think if we were to leave that open, that it would still be critical to make that a one-way going down. And for one thing, that would stop the truck traffic from making a left turn across 290 to get onto Ramirez, to go up the hill to get onto 1704. That's just dangerous. I'm surprised we haven't had a number of wrecks down there. I don't know. Maybe we have, but anyway,
I would just add that, one of the ironies of this situation is any improvements to what we're calling the Y there by Myers is all primarily going to be generated by traffic counts by TxDOT. So the truth is, the more traffic we send there on a temporary basis is going to raise those numbers, or maybe we could get a traffic light or other improvements there. But yeah, that's the double-edged sword. Until that, as Jessica said, that intersection's been looked at a lot, but to this point, until we get higher numbers there, TxDOT, it's unlikely they're going to be willing to make any significant improvements there.
So if we were to make it a one-way street going into 290, that means the traffic that wants to go back out 1704 or Fisher Street or Monterey or the others, they would have to take a left where on the loop, basically where McDonald's is, they'd have to take a left and go around? Is that what we're looking at?
That's correct. But again, it's keeping traffic off of city residential streets, and Ramirez would be a residential street considered, and keeping them on TxDOT Highway. I know it does feel kind of out of the way, because it is a nice cut through, but when you think about it from a traffic safety standpoint, they're making a left-hand turn. We know there's a considerable amount of traffic that uses Ramirez Street. They're making a left-hand turn unprotected across 2 lanes of traffic on 290. Whereas opposed if they were making that left-hand turn on 109 or Harris Street, it is at a protected intersection light. And then they would go around, and they do have a right-of-way to enter onto 1704 and loop back around and have the right-of-way protected of those vehicles the entire way to go that direction. Again, there's not a one-size-fits-all. The main thing is Ramirez is paid for by the city. It is kind of a loaner from TxDOT, to say the least. It is in their right-of-way. If something far in the future comes through here, it'll go away potentially, that entire street.
Oh, it's not, might not be. They're not gonna be happy that, there's no might not.
No one likes the longer trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one likes the longer trip.
What have we taken into account that when they take a left there on the loop at McDonald's, that they're gonna cut across South Avenue C instead, and all of a sudden South Avenue C is gonna triple and quadruple in traffic?
Well, and that was the discussion, that is, if you do make that decision, to do a one-way, I highly recommended that you do close it off, because otherwise they have no way to get there. If you just do a one-way on Ramirez, I agree with you 100%. Some people will still try to think that it's somehow, although it really wouldn't be wrong if they go all the way up to the T intersection, because
Yeah.
they have a protected turn
Right,
to make
right.
it around,
Yeah.
rather than trying to cut down Avenue C and come through it. I think most traffic, by the time you get to where you could actually access Avenue C, you're already there at 1704. So you might as well just go around on 1704 and not have to worry about going down a residential area. But if you were to make Ramirez a one-way, you know, it would be highly recommended that you close that off, you know, if you were worried about people circumventing. Again, similarly, like we talked about the last one, I did talk to Tom and them about this, that this might be one where you would potentially work with TxDOT to do some temporary barricades here as well. They would probably have to be a little bit more robust, not like water barricades or anything like that. You'd probably put in the large concrete traffic barriers and, you know, do a 1 or 2 or 3 month process to see how the traffic flow changes.
So would it be feasible to put up signage for the trucks that, you know, just give them some direction, you know, access to 1704 via Harris Road? I mean, because what we did was we created a truck route and then we kind of threw it out there and said, find 1704 the best way possible. And of course, they're using the path of least resistance by not going down to Harris. But if we put signs out there that said, you know, trucks go this way only.
Yeah, you could put a no through truck sign up there. At the end of the day, those are enforcement. You know, it's no different than speeding or anything else like that. If they think they can get up and down Ramirez Street and not get a ticket, they'll continue to use it as an access point. I think someone said it. You're going to. I think the mayor said it, that truck traffic has increased. The city has to be aware that you're extending sewer out 1704. You have some large subdivisions out that direction. That truck traffic's probably not going to decrease anytime soon. And eventually, as those subdivisions or commercial developments come online, you're going to, in addition to the truck traffic, you'll see the actual normal car traffic as well. Could be 5 years, could be 10 years, but I wouldn't expect a decrease anytime soon.
Okay. Juan, Susie, anybody else have anything they want to add to this?
Well, the only thing I had, Mayor, was if we adopt this plan, down at the bottom of Meetingtuesday Road where cars come on 290, there is zero visibility for cars coming up on you. I mean, you really gotta hustle and get out on 290. And we're gonna have supposedly more cars when
Yeah.
going that way. This is just something to consider.
Okay, good point. Anybody else? Let's move on to number 4. Houston Street and Madison Street. I took a drive down there today. Who's got the background on this? Any of you?
Yeah, Mayor, I have the background on this. I don't know, Mary might as well. Citizens called, an accident just happened. A car coming down Madison from the Jackson Street area was speeding, lost control, and ran into her fence, almost hit her house. And so that's kind of what started that conversation. And since then, I think there was some data pulled, just in the last, I don't know, couple of years maybe. The issue there is just people coming down really quickly down that road. And then the intersection that's there, Houston-Madison, is that odd freeway stop. Well, it's not a freeway now, but it's
Two-way.
it's a two-way. described earlier, traffic coming down Houston towards MLK is kind of an open area as well, and then, of course, this long stretch of Madison. So what was considered is the addition of maybe a stop sign, I guess on the Van Buren side, which is still quite a bit up, because it looks like there's already an existing one there at Jackson. But the main issue here is traffic control and speeding.
Okay, so I know it's here in front of me. I don't see the proposal. What is the change?
My understanding is, and I guess we don't see it, Bo, on the chart, but at the time that we looked at it, you were proposing maybe a stop sign further up at Van Buren. And then more recently, we talked about whether a three-way stop could be made at the intersection of Houston and Madison.
And so where we're kind of with that, Mayor, is essentially is depending on which residents and where you believe the biggest issue is in this particular area, if you guys wanted to add stop signs, it would be, go through with a stop sign warrant study on multiple locations and do it under one study for the traffic flows. That way you're getting the counts accurately all together, rather than piecemeal it if there is some ambiguity as to where the citizens really perceive the problem.
Could we not, and I don't know, maybe I don't know what the policy is anymore, could we not put a speed bump right in between Jackson and Houston, and that would slow the traffic down?
Sure, we could.
Do we not do speed bumps, or what? Well, I mean, wouldn't that just solve the problem, just putting a speed bump right in the middle of that section where people speed up?
Sure. Yeah, we've had some debates on that. Of course, there are several speed humps that are installed throughout this area of town. I could certainly give you a history of that. Quite a bit of study done. Bo did help us with that several years ago. Since then, really the question has always been that if we're going to pursue that the city should really look at what kinds of guidelines do we want to establish. Otherwise, we get in a situation where anybody in town could request something like that, and if we don't have guidelines as to what the procedure might be or
Okay.
what might justify something. But I will also just add that when we looked at the addition of what's currently there, we looked at the cost and budget of it. At the time, there were funds that we had access to, but it was something that was not an extraordinary amount of money. It was just really looking at, if we're going to do this, we better understand how we're going to do this.
How we get to that point?
Long-term, yeah. Rather than it just be
Okay.
a one-off, because otherwise then you have a city filled with
And
just
that-
no strategy behind how we're doing speed humps.
And that's fair enough and a good point, yeah. Anybody else? Well, it's not an action item, it's a discussion item, so I think on every one, except maybe I'm still a little confused on the last one. On every one, we've at least got some ideas that we can possibly talk about in a future meeting.
I think the next thing too that Tom and Bo wanted us to address is that what's our thinking on public outreach? You know, in the past when we've had public hearings, and I guess, Tom, you can add to this, I guess part of that procedure is simply sending out letters to people within a certain perimeter or proximity. I don't know in this case, because this could affect other areas of town, how we would approach that, but I think the one thing that we probably need to try to provide some guidance on is what's our next step with public outreach.
That's a very good point. Probably some public notices in the newspaper and other locations. But Tom, what would we do in a case like that?
Well, as Jessica said, it's kind of a new territory. I think you did some of that with the previous round of speed humps you did, but that predated me. Yeah, I would, as I said in the beginning, I think in each one of these cases, clearly it's the people that live in the area of these intersections that are going to be most affected by any decision we make. So I would assume we could do truthfully, if you were going to do it, I think that would be a little more effective if it was kind of project-oriented rather than having just one big public hearing to discuss all these, that maybe you'd have individual group meetings to gather input that way. Again, it's.
Does the public forum have to be a called meeting?
It would have to be if the council of if a quorum of the council were present, even just to hear the information, we'd do a posting. But yeah, I would, and you know, we obviously already have had a very lengthy conversation about this here, so I think it's hard to do that and take a lot of public input at part of a regular meeting as well. So it might be important to have a series of standalone meetings. But I think I'd also suggest that however council wants to handle it, we feel like the staff's kind of completed our task of bringing these, as Jessica said, in each case, I don't think any one of them are what the staff or the city engineer is saying the ultimate solution. It's we're trying to make the peg fit in the hole with what's on the ground today. So some of the suggestions we've heard tonight and other input is all of that's possible. So I don't know if you want to move the ball a little further with what our plan may be, or go right to public input, or.
What do you guys think? I mean, let's do something. Let's do something. Give the public an opportunity to come and say, I strongly oppose this, or I strongly, I like this idea, or whatever.
Require another presentation like this? I mean, because it sounds like, based on some of our initial feedback, there might be some modifications that Bo might want to present. For instance, if we looked at the option where you're not blocking off certain areas, and then, of course, the first one that we looked at with Hillside, right now it's showing where, or at least we're talking about where cars can go left or go right. And I don't know, I guess, Bo, you could come back with a revised set. I don't know if we necessarily bring that back to council, but it sounds like there are a couple of modifications based on tonight's discussion that we would want to see prior to sharing with the public.
Yeah, I could. Yes. Yeah, I think we could proceed and not present it in a conventional public hearing form of, here's a project we're going to do, and get comments on that, but more, I think we could present it, and we're just trying to discuss ideas and get input that way. I think, I think once Bo and I have a chance to reconsider some of the things said here tonight, we could modify that. And I think that, again, I would suggest we present it much in the same format we did here tonight. These issues came forward, here's an idea or a couple ideas we've had, and get that input. Given the time of year and all that, I don't perceive any of these to really be emergency situations. So you think we could wait till after the first of the year to do those meetings, or would you rather move them along quicker than that?
I don't think they're an emergency. Some would argue with me on that, but it needs to be timely. Some of these issues, even though we're talking about them recently, have existed for a while. And some of them are safety issues, so I don't know if we'd want to wait a very long time, try to take action.
I'd say that we prioritize them, rank them 1 to 4, and then since this is 4 different areas of that part of town, it might be better for us just to have a focused meeting for Ramirez Street, another one for Hillside, and then that way we're not confusing, the neighborhoods with all this other stuff, but we're focused on them for that one meeting. So I know 4 meetings are tedious, But if we, say this is our number one issue, let's try to get a meeting in December and move forward on it, and then, start January, do boom, 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 and do it that way.
I would prefer 2 and 2
Yeah.
instead of 4 different meetings, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, we certainly prioritize, that's for sure. Or even if, when we announce it, if we do 2, let's say, the first one will be from 7 to 8, or from 6:30 to 7:30 PM. The second will be from 7, just so we don't have to meet 4 different times.
That's an idea.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have anything before we go to the next item? Having a process in place for citizens to ask us to assess, is that what you're asking, or do you have someplace else?
Yes, there's a couple, I know the subdivision that I live in, I receive complaints all the time. They're building new houses right off of 290, right across from Elm Creek. And then you have Claus Lane and the West Wind area. And we've been getting a lot of trucks through there, more traffic on Claus. That makes turnarounds right at the end of the subdivision. And then we also have a couple areas in County Line as well.
So why don't you get those down in paper, and then we can, add it on to a future meeting, just so that we can have something in writing to look at. Anybody else have anything before Tom goes on to the next item?
Well, can I?
Yes, I'm sorry.
So can I suggest, if you have a prioritization of these projects that are before, you'll let me know, or the mayor know, and then maybe the mayor and I can figure out a meeting schedule for how we put these together, and maybe we can get one early in December and then another one early in January, something like that.
Okay.
And then we'll report back.
Okay, we'll
Okay.
talk about which ones you feel are number 1 and 2, and that's where we'll go.
Ready to move on, Mayor? Okay, our next item on the agenda is an update on our city marshals program. This is, if council, I emailed all of you the full presentation for the meeting, so at least if you can pull that up, you can follow on your iPad since our AV's not working. But when we adopted, did the final adoption to the budget last month or 2 ago, a couple questions had come up about the Marshall program, and we weren't exactly prepared for that at the time, so I just thought Chief would come and give council an update, make sure there aren't any questions. If you recall, a year ago, how long ago did we start this?
About a year ago.
About a little more than a year ago. We had realized we'd had an issue with accumulating warrants in the municipal court that weren't getting processed and served, and represented a significant amount of potential revenue for us. And so we came up with a plan that we thought would work, should have worked, to hire create a marshal program, hire a couple marshals to work on clearing out all those warrants and serving them. And in exchange, the money they would generate would pay for all the costs associated with that program. That part still worked, but we just couldn't keep staffing in place.
It did eventually, yes.
So with that, I just thought, I wanted Chief to give you an update about where the status of that is and make sure there aren't any questions on anybody's part.
So in response to Councilmember Gonzalez's questions before, I'll give a little history to council just to help the situation. So in 2003, the city contracted with MVBA, which is the usual company that most smaller towns utilize to do collections for the municipal court systems that they have. And so since that period of time, I can't remember how many years, but we went back almost 4 or 5 years on outstanding citations, even some were longer than that had still not been collected. And with the lack of staffing and the lack of marshal system, we weren't able to do that. So in this program that we did, we had 2 part-time positions to come in and focus certain hours on a week at collecting those within the city, because the vast majority of the wards we have are outside the city limits, obviously. Most people who are in the city kind of pay those. So once we kind of, for no other term, I guess, to use, kind of took care of that low-hanging fruit, it was more difficult for the marshals to sustain that productivity. And then after a period of time, the staffing issues, because they were part-time positions, were harder to keep filled. And I think one stayed vacant for almost a year at one time. So I guess the real goal that we're talking about is the actual outstanding citations, not necessarily the process that we utilize to do that. And the company that we currently use and have used since the last 15 years, all they do is send out a letter and a card, and we end up paying it. And all we do is end up paying them anywhere from 20 to 30% on the ones that actually get returned. And only doing a card or a letter is going to obviously have a low turnout. So that was kind of the problem we were looking at ahead of time. There are additional companies that we actually, Charles and I are going to start looking at, and we've been in contact with, that have a very much higher success rate at getting all those, anywhere from 40% return on those outstanding citations. So I think it's a methodology that we need to look at doing that's a little different than what we have. I don't think the staffing is going to change anytime in the future. So we just got to do it smarter.
So the bottom line is, still got a pile of warrants that potentially could generate some revenue for us. We're going to make every effort to get those served and cleared out.
Chief, did you just say that the majority of warrants are from people outside the city?
Yes.
Outside the city limits?
Yes.
And the constables don't help in serving or?
In general, in Bastrop, they all do. We all do it. It's a jurisdictional issue as well. And so if you get too far out, like Houston or not so much Austin, but then to actually transport the person back and forth is more expensive than it would be just to.
Or what you're going to collect?
Yeah, what you're going to collect. It's adverse to the city to do that.
Okay, if that, somebody any other questions? Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
The next item was on the manager's report was to talk about our upcoming city council meeting schedule. As the council knows, we've had a jumbled up couple of months here between COVID and the election date and canvassing the ballots and a couple of things. We had to delay different meetings, so we kind of are where we are in our schedule. So Mayor Ramirez and I had discussed this through, and given where we're at today, our regular schedule would have us to have another meeting next week, which obviously would be pretty tough for us, particularly since it's a short week vacation for everybody. So what we're proposing is and typically, I think we've usually skipped the second meeting in December for the holidays. So what we're suggesting is that we just have the one regular meeting in December and have that be on December 15th. And then in January, we'd come back, and that would set us up to go back on our regular first and third Tuesdays of January 5th and January 19th. So just want to make sure that's okay with everybody. You want more meetings? I'll meet with you one if you want to meet. But we'll, obviously, if we had any pressing business come up, but we think we've pretty much got it organized where that'll work fine for the staff as well.
Everybody understand the reason that we did that is we'd have a meeting next week, but the city's off already a couple days, and so we wouldn't have a chance to get any new business.
That's right. Okay, so we'll plan on that. Then next item under the report was Sue? Yeah, I don't know if okay, you're back. Did you hear we so we're going to go to just one meeting in December and have that be on December 15th. Did you get that part? Okay. And then one discussion item we had placed on the agenda, we actually have a few appointments, election of mayor pro tem, and of course the Ward 3 council seats issues to address. So just wanted to have a quick discussion item about that and the plan moving forward. For the mayor pro tem election, that's pretty straightforward. It will be on the agenda on the December 15th meeting for council in accordance with the city charter. That'll be the next regular meeting after the election as dictated, so we'll need to select a mayor pro tem at that meeting. We've had some regular conversation, I think the mayor and I have, and y'all had received a memo from me previously about our upcoming boards and commissions appointments. We have a number of those seats that are different. Just virtually every board or commission at least has a couple appointments we're going to have to make, if only reappointments. So we have, as council's aware, we've put those all on a regular uniform date, and that would be the January 5th meeting now that will be on the agenda to make all of those appointments. We have the process in place where we have our applications are online, and I've sent you hard copies of the application yourself that you can distribute to anybody that's interested. The basic process is that we need to get those in as much as possible, and then at the first here by December 5th, under the requirements of the ordinance, the city secretary will provide you a final list of all the open seats and what applications the staff will have received at that point in time. Now, in the past, I don't think we've considered that as an absolute deadline. The ordinance just says we'll provide, the staff's to provide whatever applications we have at that point. So I'm assuming we'll continue to accept any applications up until the January 5th meeting. I think that's what we've done before. Right? Well, I mean.
Oh, yes,
I guess
what we discussed
mainly,
about, yes.
Right, I'm just saying,
Yes.
I assume we don't want to necessarily draw a hard line. That given the fact that we're usually looking for people to be appointed, that we want to take those applications at the same time.
Seems
We probably want to cut those off the weekend before the meeting so the council would have a chance to review all those applications before the meeting on the 5th.
Seems like last year, didn't we have a couple, oh, no, I'm sorry, that was on
No,
charitable organizations.
Right.
I'm getting confused.
knowing that
We didn't have
have-
anybody that went through
I'm
and
sorry,
vetted any of the
Right.
candidates.
Knowing that we have so many openings, I hope that the council takes that into consideration when they're thinking about somebody that could possibly do some good on these boards, because we're looking for people, for sure. Good quality people. 'Cause there's some important stuff they're gonna be working on, so.
I just encourage, I think the best opportunity for council to get all that information is, we certainly want to encourage people to fill out an application, so you have that information. The ordinance does have specific requirements to qualify to serve, and the application is designed so those individuals will state for the record that they've meet all those qualifications. So, you know, we've faced this before, but I think I'll just say for council, coming in the night of or somebody putting a name on the table then makes it kind of difficult. So we sure want to try to get those applications in so council can have plenty of time to consider them. But that'll be on the January 5th meeting. Then the unique situation we're faced with is the Ward 3 council vacancies. Again, I've provided another report to council on this previously. Basically, we have 2 seats that are vacant that frankly the city council has a lot of discretion on as it relates to these appointments, potential appointments, what that process will be, well, basically just the whole process for doing that. Just to make it clear for the record that we had the one incumbent council member chose not to run for reelection. No one signed up to run for that election. No one signed up as a write-in candidate, so that's why that seat did not appear on the 11-3 ballot. So it immediately became vacant upon the canvassing of the votes. The second Ward 3 seat was a position where the council member resigned that seat in late September, which at that point wasn't adequate time for that seat to be placed on the ballot at the 11-3 election, so that seat is vacant as well. Our charter stipulates that when a vacancy on the city council occurs, the council is to order a special election as soon as practicable, which is what the charter says. Our city attorney has always maintained the position that, frankly, it's not practical for a small town like Elgin to have a special election, that it's not cost effective and certainly not from a participatory standpoint. So our position is what's practical is to wait until the May election to have both of these seats on the ballot. Council can, so in the May election that will come up, which individuals will be able to sign up for, I think, in late January. They'll actually, both Ward 3 seats will be on the ballot. One will be for a one-year term and one will be for a two-year term. And but whether or not there are interim appointments to be made, how council wants to consider those appointments, we're not under any particular time schedule. Basically, from that, essentially the whole situation that relates to possible appointments to these interim seats, frankly, is up to the council to decide what the process would be and how that would work.
Anybody have any comments about this? What they're thinking?
I have a comment. I think that we are just weeks away from opening up, application for running for those seats, and just a few more weeks than that, month, I guess. But for the election, so do we really want to bring somebody on in, say, January, whenever that is, and then have the election follow right on that heel? Is it better maybe to just wait until the election to have those seats filled?
Anybody else?
I would like to suggest to fill those seats because it's still 6 months before election. And that's a long time to be, it's been a long time already, and it's gonna be longer not to have those 2 seats, covered.
Okay.
And we have some people that wants to volunteer their services, so, that's where I am.
Anybody else?
Mayor, I have a quick question. I don't know if I missed it or not, but for those that might be interested to volunteer sooner rather than later, are they to fill out an application as well?
Well,
What is
that's
that process?
that's what we have to decide. If we decide to go ahead and fill the positions, how we're going to set the process for them to
Okay.
apply.
Yeah, I'd like to see what that process is going to be like, because I imagine that if there's a process and we have folks that are interested to apply, that council will have to do a fair amount of vetting to discuss. As you said earlier, we certainly want the level of engagement, it's not anymore that you just sit here and kind of show up. You definitely want, someone that's going to be engaged in all issues of the city, as well as ultimately we represent citizens. It's not really about us. So I think that those are things that we would talk about. I think that depending on the process and what that application is like, that we have an opportunity to really talk about those that we feel can come in and engage and really contribute as a whole to what, we all would like to accomplish. And of course, working with you, Ron, as a new mayor, there are things that I think are going to be very important. So I can go either way, but I'd like to understand more of what that process is going to be like and whether we'd have ample time, opportunity, given that we don't have a lot of time, to vet each and every candidate or each and every person that's interested.
Could I just throw something in for the record, Mayor? The staff has received a few calls too of people expressing interest, but we've told each one of them, as soon as we know the process, the council will get back to you. So we have had interest expressed.
So, go ahead.
Real quick, one thing I might suggest, if you've looked at it already, rather than completely reinventing the wheel, the application we have for boards and commissions, it might work for this purpose. It asks a lot of the same basic questions, and people can always attach something to that if they wanted to, but at least, if you wanted to do an application process, I guess I'm saying, I don't know that we'd have to completely come up with a new form.
So my thinking, my opinion is that if we have interested citizens in wanting to volunteer until the election, I would just not want to say, no, we don't want to use you, or we don't want it. We don't want your input. I would think that we want to fill the positions because they could do us a lot of good in those 4 months until the election. So that's just my opinion. I would like to get them filled, and then if we decide to do that, then we got to figure out, like Councilmember Vega was saying, what process we're going to use. But I think it should be a timely process, whether it's posting a public notice saying, applications will be accepted from this time to this time, and then the council will have time to look at the applications, and then we'll make a decision, hopefully sometime in January. There's no use in making a decision in February or March, right? So, I mean, let's go ahead. If we decide to go that way, I would say let's just go ahead and go with it. Let's work on it. Anybody else have anything?
Doesn't the charter state something about if it's longer than 90 days before an election that it needs to be appointed or something? And plus, previously, when we've had an opening such as we have now, council members have suggested people, that we've known or whatever, and we voted on them like that.
If I may, I think we've outgrown that process a little bit, just because we have many more folks who are engaged. And it opens up an opportunity for more to come that maybe, we don't know about.
Is the council comfortable if we decide to go that direction? Is the council comfortable with a public posting, let's say for 2 weeks? And say, if you're interested in applying for the vacant Ward 3 position, you have to fill out the application that's currently on the council website. I mean, I haven't looked at it close enough. Tom, you seem to feel that it would fit the purpose?
Yes, I think it asks for individuals, the basic questions of the commission, are you a resident of the city, what's your interest, but I think you could get the basics from that. At least it would give it some uniformity, and then.
And they would, of course, have to be from Ward 3, right? I mean, everybody agree with that, right? Okay.
Yeah, they'd have to be, and then, but they could always attach information to that, and I guess what I'm suggesting, I'd say that only because if we came up with a new form, I think we'd have to have another session for council to review that. And if we want to try to move forward timely, what you're saying, Mayor, I mean, we could start doing that tomorrow.
Sure.
And tell people we're at least accepting applications for it. If I could keep going, can
Yes, sir.
we,
Yes, sir.
we could start something like that and then have a report on the December 15th meeting and come back to you with what applications we've had, and we could discuss it again then, and then, like you say, maybe be ready in January to make a decision.
I don't know if that's too quick, or that's 2 weeks, or no, it's 3 weeks. Yeah, okay, it's 3 weeks. I was thinking it's 2. Okay.
I guess that's the point. If we agreed that on the 15th, that it would again just be a discussion item, and then we could assess it at that point. If you thought you needed to wait longer, you could.
I don't know, I'd like to hear from Juan, Susie, and Sue as to what their thoughts are, first of all, on filling the vacancy sooner rather than later. I think it's important that you get a sense from what we're
Okay.
feeling.
Does Susie or Juan want to comment?
I agree with that approach, with having applications right within the 15th. I also agree that appointing someone also allows them the opportunity to see what it's like. Some people just approach the council and want to contribute, but they don't realize what it entails. So I think it would be good to
Mayor Ramirez?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I'm okay with the application that we already currently have. It asks all the stuff and that you would kind of fill out anyway. And probably would decide I have 2 people that have sent me emails that I need to let them know they need to go online. So we should make a decision if we're gonna.
I kind of agree with Forrest. By the time we get this done, it'll be February for them to apply to run for their position. So,
Well, okay.
Either way, it doesn't matter. But I kind of agree with Forrest.
Okay. I mean, I hope to do it quicker than February, but
Can I offer just another comment or clarification? I would suggest, as Jessica pointed out, just in the short time I've been here, we've been through this a couple times, and as council knows, other times we couldn't, well, I think that's a situation with Ward 3. We really struggled in the past to find anybody willing to do the job. So if we're going to have a uniform process, I'd suggest that all those applications come to the staff and not have individuals expect you to carry, right? I think that's one way we'll get them all, and we'll disperse them to council all the same way. One thing that I've had come up in conversation that I just throw out there, I don't know if it matters, if we want to add this to the application. Does it matter if we've had some people reach out to us and say, I'm interested in this, but I'm only interested to fill in the interim. I'm not going to run for election in May. I don't intend for that, but if the council needs my help, I could do it for this short period of time. Is that a question that the council needs to know the answer to? Is the individual intending to run for the full term?
I wouldn't need to know that, but I don't know what anybody else thinks. I mean, that would be their decision.
I think it'd be okay to allow those people, because they may decide to change their mind and run
Okay.
after.
All right. Okay. Well, I think we can get started on it, Mayor. I think I've got enough if everybody's agreeable. And I think that's the main point. We'll start the process. We'll see what we get. We can report back on the 15th, and then we'll get further direction from council then.
Could we ask Amy to post that for us on our social media
Sure.
and in the newspaper for 2 weeks or something like that?
She'd do it anyway, whether I ask her to or not. So. Okay, we're done with that one, Mayor. Then, okay, go ahead. Sorry, sir.
Are you gonna maybe send the link out to us for those who have received emails to say where the application is, so we can just say, here, go here, and then staff will take care of it?
Sure, we'll do that. We'll do that tomorrow. Thank you. Okay. That's really all the 2 hours later, Mayor, the manager's report. We did want to talk about tonight, but dang it, I think we'll wait till the 15th to talk about the sidewalk, just because we don't have the visual to show everybody. But we got some great news that we got approved for a $500,000 grant for sidewalks in the downtown area and around. If council remembers, it wasn't too long ago you got the report. This is around the CART station and all that area, so we got approved for that. But truthfully, to tell the whole story, I need the visual, so we'll bring that back on the 15th, and then Amy can give you all the details then. Other than that, Mayor, unless anybody had any particular questions for me that we didn't touch on the report.
Anybody?
And then the department reports are in the packet either now or later. If anybody has any questions, just let me know about those. So that's all our report, Mayor.
Okay, so we're moving on to the consent agenda.
That's correct.
And what we're going to be approving is the 3 city council meetings, is that it?
That's right.
Has everybody had the chance to review the minutes and everything? Is there any questions on the previous minutes?
Yes, Sue.
I'm here, I read them, they're good.
Okay. Sue's the informal.
Oh, okay. I was kind of wondering
auditor
where
of
that
the
was going,
minutes.
okay. So do we have a motion to approve the city council meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second, Pinson.
Okay, Sue Brasher made the motion, and Ms. Penson seconded, is that correct?
Correct.
Let's do a vote. Sue, if you would start.
Frazier, yes?
Ramirez, yes?
Vega, yes.
Pinson, yes.
Dennis, yes.
So the motion is approved. The city council minutes have been approved. Going on to new business. Are we ready to go to new business, everybody? Okay, there's several items that are under new business. Let's talk about item number 1. Pursuant to the Article 3, Section 13 of the Elgin Home Rule Charter, this is an emergency ordinance declaring that a public health emergency exists because of the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic, establishing requirements related to the posting of a public notice by commercial entities and the wearing of face coverings, and providing for a savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances and resolutions. Tom, would you have some background on this?
Yeah, I guess I better put my mask on while I'm talking about this. This is simply a routine renewal of the ordinance we did already. It has no material impact on anything. It won't change anything. Truthfully, it's basically the city's way to endorse face covering requirements by the governor. It won't change anything, but these emergency ordinances like this automatically expire if they're not renewed in 60 days. So we kind of missed the last one expired, so we're just renewing that ordinance.
Okay. Anybody have any questions concerning this? Basically, it's what we've been doing, but it's just stressing again that there's every reason to be safe the right way with the social distancing and the mask. So, do we have a motion to pass item number 1 of new business?
So moved, Pinson.
Okay, the motion was made by Councilmember Penson and seconded by Councilmember Dennis to pass. Do I need to read this whole thing again, or just to say to pass item 1 as discussed?
That's fine.
Starting with you, Ms. Penson, would you please?
Pinson, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Frazier, yes?
Ramirez, yes?
Vega, yes.
Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded and passed unanimously. I get to use this thing again?
Yeah, that's right.
Every time?
Every time.
Okay.
Don't break
Good.
it.
Let's go to item number 2. Resolution of the City of Elgin, Texas, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with TRC Engineers Incorporated for professional engineering services related to the County Line Road roadway and drainage project, Phase 1, and making certain findings related thereto. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor. This item 2, if you had a chance, if you can get your presentation and look at it real quick, we just wanted to show this is. We've been talking about this for some time. As council's aware, we've had the County Line Road widening project. Oh, wait a minute. This other visual I gave you earlier, this one, it's on here. It's the folded one. We've had this project in our 5-year capital plan for some time and broken down into a 3-phase project, which is basically essentially from the high school that are at 1100 to the northern city limits is Phase 1. Phase 2 is redoing the curve, And then Phase 3 would be from the curve south back to 290. But what this action is tonight is to authorize the engineering contract to get started on that project so that we can develop the design and specifications so the project we can talk about rebuilding that road. Project is for a 5-lane roadway, 2 traffic lanes on both sides with a turn lane in the middle, sidewalks, curb and gutter drainage, a huge upgrade for that road that will be responsive to the development we have in that area. We're proposing that we get started on Phase 1 now. It will take about a year to develop the plans and specs, so that we'll probably a year from now, we could, if we are in a financial position to do so, we could do a bid and start the construction shortly thereafter. But obviously, I think as we all know, we're seeing a significant amount of development in that area. That is, we have 3 developments: the Peppergrass development that's right there at the corner of 1100 and County Line Road, Homestead, which is our newest, most active development out there on the west side of County Line Road, and then the major development that we anticipate starting in the ground here right after the first of the year is the Harvest Ridge development by Braun Homes. Those 3 developments alone will construct 2,000 homes, a little over 2,000 homes just in this one stretch of County Line Road. So obviously, this is a roadway that already has a significant amount of traffic when the school is in normal session. But as the growth continues, we'll continue to see more and more impact on this roadway. So the timing is right for us to get started on this project. What's important for the council and everyone to understand is that we're starting, we're recommending we proceed with the engineering plans and specifications, although we don't really have a plan for the actual construction of the road, meaning a financial plan for that. That project is currently estimated construction cost at about $5.5 million. But what's important to understand about that as well is for the first time in the city's history, we've actually got the private development partners to join with us in a financial standpoint and have assessed certain cost sharing with each one of these developments to help pay for this cost. So through our development agreements with each one of them, they will be contributing $3.5 million toward the cost of this road. Now that money will come as they file plats over time. That $3.5 million will come when they're fully built out. So what we're going to do here is what we're recommending as we start on the engineering. This contract is for about $600,000, a little more than that, for the engineering project. We believe that over this first year, those projects will generate sufficient funds to pay for all that engineering cost. So by the end of the year, we're confident that we'll at least have generated that, so there'll be no direct cost impact on current city taxpayers or residents to do the engineering. We've already collected a few $100,000 from those developments, the 2 that have started out there. So I'm pretty confident by the end of the year we'll have generated enough to at least pay for that. The challenge will be for us then to make a decision about timing or moving forward. We've already discussed with TRC that it's possible that we don't want to get upside down on the cost for this. So if something were to happen here midstream, mid-year, we may put a stop sign on them to quit incurring costs. So I'm confident that we're going to generate enough revenue from these developments to pay for all this initial engineering plan development. Now, the important thing to keep in mind is even if it works out in the best possible scenario, a year from now when we talk about actually doing the construction of the road, we're still going to the city's going to probably have to come up with a couple $1 million, and that's just to do this section of the road. So usually we try to start these projects with having all those things decided, so it's just important to me that everybody understand that we still have that part to figure out. At the same time, I don't think we can wait any longer in getting started when you consider that any improvements to the roadway are a minimum 2 years out. We'd have a year to do the plan development and probably a year to do the construction. So, so while there's not a lot out there yet, that'll continue to grow. Now, as we come back south, well, frankly, we're going to have bigger challenges, I think, with the affordability question because we have less, development projects happening south where we can get the same kind of cost sharing from developments out there. Certainly, what was constructed out there in the past without any commitment like this, we can't go back on, for example, the county line subdivision. The school district built major campuses out there and haven't contributed to this cost. So ACC, we have talked to them, but it'll be a challenge for us to continue to create a situation where we can make this roadway affordable for us to complete all the way back to 290. But this is certainly a start. So we feel good about getting this part built and getting it built in an affordable way. Hopefully TxDOT will come to bat, and even Travis County. Once we get started out there, we'll certainly be looking to them in the future to try to partner with us from a cost standpoint. But usually those partnerships, in my experience, come when the locality starts and proves that they're willing to invest funds in a project like this. Then you can usually get some participation from the others. So tonight is just to approve the engineering contract to get TRC started, and it's a major project, big improvement in the long run, but kind of got to start somewhere. So,
anyone have any questions or comments? I'm just learning about this particular project. Council, I gather y'all have already had some information on this, and okay. Anybody have any questions or comments on this?
oh, didn't I get you on Forrest? I'm sorry.
And I'd like to make a comment just out of naivety, I guess. But yeah, we need to put pressure on Travis County to help us eventually on that road, because I just see their responsibility there just like ours is. So that's just my one comment. Anybody else have anything?
It's one little sidebar to that is that Travis County's right. I guess we've talked about this before. It's county line road, but it's not on the county line. It's the whole road's in Travis County, and so I'd like to get Bastrop County to pay for it, but they're sure not going to do it because it's not even.
The whole road is in Travis County? Is that what you're saying?
The entire right-of-way is. In fact, it's probably 200 feet west of or more west of, east of County Line Road there that the county line occurs. So it's all of the roads on the Travis County side.
Any questions from the council? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve item number 2, the resolution as stated. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Ms.
Second
Brasher
by
made the
Penson.
motion. Ms. Penson seconded. If there's no further questions, we'll call for a vote. Ms. Brasher, if you'll start.
Frazier, yes?
Ramirez, yes?
Vega, yes.
Penson, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Okay, the vote is unanimous. The motion passes. Going on to item number 3 is a resolution of the City of Elgin, Texas, authorizing the award of an engineering service provider contract for the Texas Department of Agriculture 2021-2022 fiscal year Community Development Block Grant statewide competition.
Mr. Mayor, this is a routine authorization to have TRC do some required engineering. We're filing a new application for this year's CDBG statewide competition, and those applications require a minimal amount of engineering. So this is just a formality to authorize to use TRC for that purpose.
Do we have any idea, Tom, what money we're talking here? Or-
I don't, Amy. or
Okay.
Charles, do you know that? I think it's kind of to be determined, right? We haven't really figured out the. Do you know that? do we know
Is it a
that?
minor project compared to normal engineering
Yeah,
requests?
typically these are really minor cost. It's just a matter of doing the minimal amount so that we can put together a qualifying application.
So we get more sidewalks.
So we get more sidewalks, yes.
I'm sorry, Sue, did you make a comment?
She just said, so we can get more
Oh,
sidewalks.
so we can get more sidewalks, okay,
yeah.
all right. Anybody else have anything? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to pass item number 3 as state, the resolution as stated. Do we have a
So
motion?
moved. Oh, so moved, Benson.
Okay. Okay, so Ms. Penson made the motion and seconded by Ms. Vega. We'll call for a vote. Ms. Penson, you'll start, please.
Benson, yes.
Yes.
Fraser, yes?
Ramirez, yes?
Vega, yes.
Okay, passes unanimously. Item number 3, or item number 3 passed. Let's go to resolution number 4. It's a resolution by the City Council of the City of Elgin, Texas, approving the Elgin Economic Development Corporation application for a loan of $2,087,000 from First National Bank, and to approve the EDC director to sign all documents related to the loan.
Mr. Mayor, this is kind of a little bit of a technical, seems a little confusing, procedural step, but basically what it involves here is that, as you know, all expenditure of funds by the EDC has to be at some point formally approved by the council, either through the budget or budget process or other means. As we talked about earlier during the audit, the EDC, the city had loaned the EDC $2 million back when we made their big land purchase a few years ago. The EDC has now come forward and has made the decision that they're going to take out a loan from First National Bank so they can pay the city back that money. So the formality is council has to authorize them to do the loan to give us this money back. So,
Yeah, that's right.
And this has been reviewed by the EDC board. They unanimously recommended
That's correct,
council
yes.
approve it. So, anything else on that, Owen?
Just that the loan is going through First National Bank. The first year we have, we'll just do interest only, which will be about $50,000. The loan then is for another 18 years. We can pay it off without any penalty, so we believe we'll be able to pay it off pretty quickly because we're getting a lot of land sales over there now. Well, a lot of interest in the land, and we have a couple of LOIs and some contracts that we're working on. So we hope to clear it off basically before the loan, 18 years. We went out for the loan rather than taking a bond issue because the bond issue would have cost us a lot more. And on Charles' advice, we went to the local banks. We says, hey, what sort of a deal can you get us? And First National Bank gave us a really good deal, so we went with that.
The plan, the original plan is still the same. As soon as we can sell off the land, we're going to pay off this debt.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
part of structuring the debt through a bond issue, we wouldn't have been able to pay it off earlier, or there'd have been a big penalty for that.
Yeah,
So
that's correct.
This
And-
really is the best approach, but as soon as we sell $2 million worth of land, you're going to pay the loan
Yeah,
back. right?
definitely. And just issuing the bonds itself would have cost us a lot of money too, so. But I don't think you guys need audits. When I saw your auditor, you guys are flush, man.
You
don't
heard
need
him
it.
say, we took a hit on our unencumbered cash, so this cleans up this issue, and staff certainly supports it and recommends it.
Council? I mean, do we want $2 million?
Sure.
Mayor,
Yes, yes.
I'd like to say that the three banks in town really stepped up for the EDC. They came up
noted. Thank you, Sue. Anybody else? Owen, was that it?
That's it, yeah. Unless you have any questions.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution item number 4, item number 4 as read.
So moved, Dennis.
Second, Pinson.
Okay, Councilmember Dennis made the motion, seconded by Councilmember Penson. I'll call for a vote. Dennis, please.
Dennis, yes.
Frazier, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Ramirez, yes.
Vega, yes.
Pinson, yes.
Passes unanimously. As read, item number 4. Let's go to item number 5, in new business. A resolution of the City of Elgin, Texas, authorizing the city manager to execute an Elgin Park Terms of Use Agreement with the Elgin Farmers Market and providing for related matters. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor. This item is a routine annual approval of the park use agreement with the Elgin Farmers Market that I think they've had a really good year. Amy, I want to let you say something. You sat out here the whole time. You should say something, but wait, thank you. She's our official COVID monitor, so she keeps us right. But this is basically a renewal of the existing agreement, but I just thought you might share that we've had a really good year, right? It's worked out really well, and we continue to grow crowds.
Last year, they had started doing Thursdays with Sip Shop and Stroll, and then they entered into a use agreement with the city for the museum parking lot and Veterans Park to alternate at different times of the year. And they started offering the market every Thursday. And so over this year, even under the restricted operations under COVID-19, they are, of course, an essential service as a grocery provider. So they have continued to operate following COVID-19 protocols, and the response from the community has really been tremendous. The Main Street Board specifically reviewed this at their last meeting in terms of the request, and their comment was that this has been a huge asset to both the community overall and the downtown district. It's a great traffic generator. It provides an essential service. It's been really well received. And so they have been growing with additional vendors and adding things like live music, and they have yoga once a month. So they're really trying to offer more opportunity. And their request in this lease, negotiating it for this coming year, is to be located in Veterans Park. They would use the concrete area around the gazebo, and that they would be there every Thursday. And their lease terms, I believe, have landed on 2 to 9 p.m. in terms of setup and breakdown. And then their actual operating hours would generally be from 4 to 7 in the winter and from 5 to 8 in the summer months. Got that whole daylight savings thing. And they do pay a lease fee, which is noted in the agreement as well.
So the lease agreement is for fiscal year 2021, 2020, what is it? For what period of time?
It starts effective when it's approved here at council.
Okay.
And I believe we've said that it runs for 12 months.
Okay.
And I just want to say, I think this is another good example of, when we've moved to having these use agreements, I really think we used to be a little more casual about it and do verbal agreements, and we ran into certain problems that way. I think this is a prime example of by having this terms of use agreement and everybody understanding from the start what the responsibilities were, has really worked out well. It's worked out best for them, worked out for us, and I think that's one of the reasons, because the organizers and Amy put in the effort to come to a clear agreement about what the deal was when they started using it. It's really paid off for us for both sides, I think, to have a smooth operation. So,
Council, do we have any questions or comments?
Yeah, just for clarification, Amy, can you tell me I see that there's a difference between the Veterans Park and the museum parking lot. Is it, they pay both fees every week, or they pay one when they use one, one when they use the other?
Right. So they pay monthly, and so moving forward, they would be in Veterans Park unless we needed to move them either for some conflicting use or if there were weather issues. And so it is less of a rental fee for the museum parking lot because the fee schedule puts the parking lot at only $100 when the park is at, I think, $300 or $400. So they would receive a reimbursement or pay less month rent the following month to even us up on that.
All right.
But it's delineated the 25 and the 100.
So they're not securing both
No.
locations every week?
So they understand that if we need to park for concerts, the concert that we have, that they would move? Or
Right, they know that it's delineated in the
Okay.
agreement that the city, if city events can move them, if they can't cohabitate with them. that-
Okay.
yeah.
Questions, comments? I entertain a motion for the resolution, item number 5 is read.
So moved, Pinson.
Second, Dennis?
Okay, the motion was made by Councilmember Pinson, seconded by Councilmember Dennis. I'll call for a vote, starting with Councilman Pinson.
Pinson, yes.
Dennis, yes?
Frazier, yes.
Yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Ramirez, yes.
Vega, yes.
Okay, the vote passes the item passes unanimously. Item number 6, a resolution of the City of Elgin, Texas, establishing official City of Elgin holidays for the period of October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021, and providing for related matters. Tom, would you like to start with it?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. This is, I guess maybe last year is the first year we've done it, but it's a routine annual resolution that we now include as part of the budget development process because obviously there's a cost associated with the holiday schedule. So each year we ask council to approve this resolution authorizing the specific holiday schedule. However, as council knows, this year we had an issue, request come forward for the council to consider adding additional holidays. And after some discussion with the council, we ultimately zeroed in on a possibility of adding Juneteenth to the holiday schedule. And kind of based on that discussion with council, we reached out to the staff and did kind of informal polling of the staff to see if they would prefer some kind of skeleton day or floating holiday concept. But we got clear feedback from all the staff. They'd just soon have, if Juneteenth was going to be named a holiday, just do that and not, frankly, I think, not make it any more complicated than that. So this resolution is brought forward based on that discussion with council and of course our need to give formal approval to the holiday schedule for the year.
Do we have any comments or questions from the council? So I was not, I guess this has been discussed before then. Everybody sees the list of holidays, everybody has that in front of them. The question I would have, not being in the initial conversation, the question I would have is, we added, or the resolution is to add the Juneteenth as a holiday this year, is that correct? And what did we add last year? Did we add last year?
We did. We added Texas Independence Day and the half days for day before Thanksgiving and the day before Christmas Eve. And we actually dropped Veterans Day. I think, yes, that's the one that you used to get a holiday. So it was a net gain of one, but that was based on a poll we did of neighboring local governments, and we were, our overall number of holidays was less than the others, and so that brought us more in line with where everybody else was.
Last year
Last year
brought you more in line.
So those are all included in this list.
The only thing I would like us to consider is I want everyone who wants to celebrate Juneteenth to have the opportunity to celebrate Juneteenth. That's not the issue. The issue in my mind is that a paid holiday is costly. I mean, think about it. We're paying for a number of employees to have a paid holiday. Is it possible that, because if we're kind of more or less comparable last year, or with what was added last year, is it possible to say, to give the employees an opportunity to say, I'd like to have Juneteenth off, or I'd like to have Columbus Day off? Or, you know what I'm saying? Give them an option of one or two. I'm looking fiscally and conservatively at the money that we have in our budget. And an extra paid holiday is a cost, is a big cost. I just want you to consider that, that's all, because you guys have already, been thinking about this. But I in no way intend for to take that holiday away from anybody that wants to use Juneteenth. All I'm saying is, instead of adding another day to the holiday schedule, would we consider giving an either or? You can sign up and say, because that gives us 2 more days of service to the community. 2 more days that we could have a crew work on, let's say if it's Columbus Day. Some would sign up for Columbus Day, some would sign up for Juneteenth, I would imagine. What do y'all think about that?
Are you talking about next year, or what's proposed here?
This date, October 1st through September 30th of 2021?
So you're
I know we're already a couple months into it.
Yeah, so you're thinking of the option to start this holiday schedule, or what's presented here?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, council had several discussions. I know that we were asked specifically to consider Juneteenth to be an official holiday of the city, to be observed by all, not necessarily as optional. I know recently Forrest and I talked a little bit about that. We thought that was a pretty important distinction, in my opinion, as far as it, the specific request was to make it official, and that all would have that opportunity to take advantage, rather than some. I know that in past discussions we have talked about, I agree, at some point it can get sort of out of hand. Anybody can come and request a holiday to add to the schedule. That's why we thought it was really important that when Tom came back to us, that he was able to talk to staff, talk to HR about what might be feasible, at the same time finding the balance of what is it that the city's willing to do. I agree, it's costing us. At the same time, it's also a statement, in my opinion, to be very honest with you, that we as a city of Elgin will observe Juneteenth.
Okay, thank you for your opinion. Anybody else?
Okay. I had originally posted the thought of a floating holiday, so it would just be on board for everybody. If you wanted Veterans Day, that was your floating holiday. If you wanted Juneteenth, that was your, or the HSA, so whichever one, just to make it one floating holiday, and then that was your choice, depending on your frame of mind. That sounds like the poll and the staff went a different route.
Okay, so let's make sure that we understand that I understand the importance of Juneteenth. And I understand that and I fully want our employees to celebrate that holiday. If they wish to celebrate that holiday. But I'm just looking at the bottom line, at the money that if we are giving our employees a decent holiday schedule comparable to other cities, that's what I'm looking at. So that's my point, and don't construe it as anything else. So we can make a motion, if somebody wants to make a motion for the item as it is, and then we'll take a vote, and if you know, if it passes, it passes, and if it doesn't, it doesn't.
I have another quick question, Mayor.
Sure.
And Tom, maybe you can clarify too. Some of the time that was spent from when this originally came to our attention this summer and then up to now, that basically what is here is what the employees have stated they want, correct, to some degree? You know, were options presented, and if so, is this ultimately what came out of perhaps that conversation or that overall assessment based on what the staff would like to do? Because I know that we thought it was important at the time that we're not necessarily saying, oh yeah, staff, you go take these holidays. We're allowing staff to tell us what is it they'd like to observe and when.
Well, I wouldn't say I posed it to them exactly like that. I know they were very happy and very excited about the new schedule from last year. So I think that's, from the staff perspective, frankly, I think we feel like the holiday schedule is set, other than this question about Juneteenth. As I said, everybody was well aware that they got additional holidays last year, and we're very appreciative of that. So, yeah, I'm satisfied that we discussed it through the department heads with enough about this question about, you know, actually Sue said it better than I did, this idea of a floating holiday, or did they want just to have the designated day, and you know, almost the unanimous feedback we got. I don't want to say every single employee voted somehow, but the feedback that came back to me was we just soon have it be Juneteenth.
I've got one comment, Mayor. I'd like to see the Veterans Day back and maybe substituted for Columbus Day. There's a lot more people that are veterans or families of veterans, and Columbus didn't discover America anyway.
I personally think that's a great idea, but I don't know if that's what's on the, are we comfortable enough to vote on this, or should we table it for further discussion?
What part would we further, or what part would
Are
we
making-
table?
Are we adding another holiday?
We're adding Juneteenth, which is what was discussed a while ago. I'll just quickly say too, I'm not opposed to flip-flopping or letting staff consider flip-flopping Veterans Day for Columbus Day. In fact, and I don't want to take us off topic. I'm just saying.
No, but I do want to, just one point that I would make is, in that sense, if you remember, we talked about this last year, that if we really tried to go to the best holidays for anybody is Friday or Monday. You can have a 3-day weekend versus the 4th of July holiday that's on a Wednesday. I think we all know that doesn't give you much holiday. So I think that was the Veterans Day issue, that Columbus Day is always on a Monday, where Veterans Day is on a day, I think, is why we went that way. But that's, we got some of that feedback from our employees too. We have employees that are veterans that wanted that holiday as well, so we can circle back on that one.
You know, what we could do is celebrate it on a Friday or Monday. I mean, the city could.
I would just, both Columbus Day and Veterans Day are passed though for this year.
Yeah.
So I think we could have that conversation next year.
Mary, did you have something to say?
I would like to see Juneteenth added to the schedule. And I would like to see Veterans Day on the schedule also, because, I mean, I think that's disrespectful to take it off. And I know we all haven't served, but, you know, that honor that there have been that have served. And, you know, we have some, you know, some are, I mean, yeah, I'm just, yeah.
Mayor, I would say, following your logic, that we're adding a holiday regardless, right? Because we're gonna add a day that the employees can say, I want this one or this one or this one. So we're actually adding a holiday. I think in the spirit of the request and considering all that has gone on in the recent history, that as a council, we should stand together and say, the city is going to observe Juneteenth.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to establish an official City of Elgin holidays for the period of October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021, providing for.
I second.
Okay, the motion's been made by Councilmember Vega, seconded by Councilmember Penson. I'll call for a vote, starting with Councilmember Vega.
Benson, yes.
Dennis, yes?
Frazier, yes?
Ramirez, yes. Motion is passed. Let's go to item number 7. An ordinance amending Chapter 44, Article 2, Code of Ordinances, City of Elgin, Texas, by amending Division 1, residential requirements, non-residential and multifamily residential requirements, and irrigation, providing for a savings clause and repealing conflicting ordinances or resolution.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an item that actually is reappearing on the agenda. Council may recall this came up about a month ago. It's some routine upgrades to our landscaping requirements for residential property, new residential properties. And at that time, we had not, after our discussion, we realized we had not run that by the Planning Commission for their review and consideration. So we've done that, and they reviewed it with David and I think made an adjustment or two. And
approved with conditions, the condition being that the irrigation standards that staff was wanting to change be taken out, and that ordinance with the packet is reflective of that. And the item back before you tonight is just all those changes that you've seen in September and minus those irrigation changes. Thank you.
recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. But David's here to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Council, any questions or comments?
To be for certain, you mean it, because we had that, question about, requiring a irrigation system.
Correct.
Right.
They
So
brought
we're
up the
not-
same concerns in the meeting, which is why they made the condition to approve it with condition that be removed.
Okay, thank you.
Questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion. If not,
So moved as presented. Benson.
I'll second that.
okay. Motion made by Councilmember Penson, seconded by Councilmember Dennis. We'll call for a vote. Councilmember Penson?
Benson, yes.
Dennis, yes?
Frazier, yes?
Ramirez, yes?
Vega, yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Mayor and council, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
David?
Okay, that finishes our, business under new business. And Tom, I don't believe we have anything to go into executive session about?
That's correct.
Okay, so there will be no executive session. How about announcements? Anybody have any announcements that they want to make? Staff?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Thank you, okay?
I just wanted to let you guys know, if you haven't been to the rec center recently, you guys should pay a visit. Amy, they're doing a great job at the rec center. I started going back, reserving some space for a couple of reasons, and it looks great. And I think that the fact that we're kind of practicing social distancing and just the whole reservation process is very easy. And our rec center is definitely something to be proud of, I think. And they're doing a great job there, and everything's clean, and you have access to just about anything you'd want. So if you haven't been there recently, you guys should pay a visit.
Thank you.
Tom, did you have any announcements?
I guess, Amy, do I have any announcements? guess that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Staff?
Good.
Okay, if no
Happy
further.
Thanksgiving.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving, absolutely, to everyone. If there's no further announcements, no further business, I adjourn this meeting at 9:47.
Thanks, Sue. See you.